Good afternoon, it's 2:00. I'm calling to order the Resources and Infrastructure Committee meeting. It's Monday, March 11th. We have four members of the committee present. Mr. Webb will not be joining us today. Chairman's report. I just wanted to report that several members, well, our ad hoc committee of Mark Meeks and Julie Amaday have signed up for the next grant writing workshop. And I signed up for it as well. We had our strategic planning workshop last Monday and updated a lot of the objectives, the objectives and the supporting actions for them. And that will be discussed at Thursday's board meeting, where the board will be approving the updated strategic plan. Do we have any ad hoc committee reports? I know we are going to be discussing the one that's in the agenda packet later, but is there anyone else that wants to give us an update on what they're working on? No,
Just that we did meet on February 21st, the CIP meeting. We did meet on February 21st, and sort of next steps for us are gonna be reviewing the ranked CIP lists for both the wastewater and the water
okay.
groups. Yeah.
So what criteria are you using for prioritizing the projects? Can I ask that?
Sure. Safety, regulatory compliance, and then just outstanding priorities for what we need to do to maintain the reliability of our systems, both wastewater and water.
Okay. Ms. Fritz mentioned something at the strategic planning workshop that she wanted this to be not just a project list, but a budgeting of the project. So have you guys been working with her at all as far as prioritizing also based on the budget? Or is that something that when you bring the report here, we're going to have her here to work on, or how are we doing this?
No, we have a cumulative dollar amount in mind, so all these projects leading up should be within that budgetary limit for both water and wastewater. Right, Cody? Okay, very good.
And we did discuss the budgetary limits at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, she mentioned that, and I got the impression she wasn't part of your ad hoc committee meeting, so I just wanted to make sure.
We're basing it on FY 23-24.
Okay.
FY 24-25 will be a little bit different, but we're not talking $1 million different. It's not the difference in, a huge project or not.
Okay, and then we will be bringing forward, I think, everyone's requests, budget requests for CIP projects at one of our future meetings, like we normally do, right?
We'll be covering that in R&I here, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be kind of vetting our rankings for the CIP projects.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
good. Anybody else? No? Okay, when is your next CIP meeting scheduled?
I have to check the calendar. I'm not sure. Let me, before we adjourn today,
Okay,
I'll confirm.
and you're meeting at the wastewater treatment plant, not here, right?
We are, yes, 55, yeah.
Okay, are there any other committee member communications? Anything anybody wants to give an update on? Okay, where are we with you're keeping track of the skate park grant, right?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I can say a little bit on that.
Okay.
We were very successful to secure a $5,000 generous grant from Odd Fellows.
Oh, cool.
And so that came in unexpectedly, and we thank them for their generous gift. Jim and Tristan and I, of course, attended San Simeon Tourism's meeting to try to secure funds from, which is essentially CBID. San Simeon unfortunately declined our application. They had concerns with the way they felt it met their structure. I don't know if Jim wants to add in on that.
I think they just kind of wanted to keep it in-house at this time. They didn't feel like they had the surplus dollars to kind of share in that.
Okay.
So we will continue to keep going after grants. We have one, of course, sitting out with the skate park project. I'm reworking that grant right now with Haley and our general manager, of course, and trying to get it resubmitted by March 31st. They're asking for a resubmit because it's been there for a year, but they've had some changes within their board and apparently their software or how they're going about reviewing grants. So we are literally resubmitting the grant, which is fine. I mean, it might give us an opportunity. We're farther along. it might give us an opportunity to include more. So we're moving in the right direction. All good.
Okay, good. Does anybody in the public want to make any comments on any of what we just discussed before I move on to the utility manager's report? Okay, I don't see any hands. Mr. Green, you're on.
Excellent. Well, since we're here gathered at the Vets Hall, I'll start off with the EV charging station. Permitting is complete and we should look to actually break ground on installing that charger this week.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't be Thursday when we have the board of directors meeting and there's a bunch of noise going on, but we're trying to work that out. So either probably late this week or early next week, we'll go ahead and break ground on that.
Yeah.
Kind of up to date with the funding part of the skate park project. We did have to do a section 106 for the skate park, which kind of delayed the planning a little bit, but that has been completed.
Would you explain a section 106 to me?
Sure, but Indians.
The Native
It's a
It's a-
historic
yeah.
preservation act, I believe.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, impacts on historical buildings and other historical resources.
You have to reach out to all the native tribes and see if they have any conflicts there, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Are we done on that? Are we completed on that item?
We're in the process of signing a contract with Cogstone so they can do their part of it,
On that consultant?
the consultant part of it, yeah.
Yeah, they'll be writing up the report and then submitting that.
Great. Thank
And
you.
all of its associated maps and transmittal letters and everything.
Perfect.
Mhm. Community park restroom, I think we're kind of the stalemate right here with restroom, right? We're about the same.
I mean, the Matt Varvel reviewed it.
Right.
So it passed the first stage of the 3 stages in the county planning review process. And it's, yeah, on the second stage right now, which is the planning, kind of making sure that we're gonna follow our environmental monitoring plan and that part of it.
Matt was one of the more difficult planning engineers. He really did some deep dives on some things that took some time before and kind of delayed some of the progress on that. So with him passing that, that was the harder step in the rung up the ladder here. So we should actually be looking at purchasing the restroom soon.
Okay,
So we can get ahead of that exorbitant, what,
Is that lead
46
time?
week lead time, yeah. So we want to go ahead and get that before we have any more delays there. The zero liquid discharge for the WRF is still underway. We're just waiting for the financing to be awarded to H2O or rather water systems to the Clark's company. And so no real news there on that. Stewart Street tanks is progressing well. We've had some earth work and geotech done there. Our pads are insufficient there, that the 12-inch pads are not going to meet seismic criteria. So we're going to need to remove tank pad, and by tank pad and pour a 3-foot thick pad. There's actually 30-inch like doweling that will go in for seismic restraints to hold that down. So each tank pad will have to be removed and repoured. So we have to go to the EPA and Jillian Betts and the project coordinators there. And it's an actual technical correction. So we'll see if it's that grand that we have to actually submit a technical correction, because one tank location will actually have to be moved. So we'll see if that is actually going to trigger technical correction submission. We're hoping not, but they may see it otherwise. Either way, we've confirmed that it will not affect the awarding of our grant funding. It will only delay it. From my understanding, talking to Leah Teague here a couple weeks ago, that we're really close to that being awarded. But obviously we want to do this right and not have anything taken away as far as funding goes. So that's why we're meeting with her to see what sort of technical corrections we'll have to submit. And that if we do have to submit, that will push the funding awarding to the 3rd or 4th quarter of this calendar year.
okay.
Rather, we were kind of right around the corner from that, but I mean, obviously we want to do the best thing in building these tanks, so.
So you're gonna have to move the base a little bit but is it gonna be within the same compound it is now, or are you gonna have to expand over to our other property?
It will expand onto the other property by about 15 feet.
Okay,
So yeah, so there will be some grading, and so we're having to do some more geo work on that side to make sure there's nothing that's gonna hinder that along the way, so. Other than that, environmental permitting and everything's going along quite well with that. That's the only kind of hitch in that giddy up right there is just the tank pad. But obviously we want to have it seismically correct, especially the tanks will be 3 foot taller, as I've stated before. The overflows with the California building code are now at different levels, so we can't put it right at the top of the tank. They have to be 3 feet below the top of the tank. So the tanks will be 3 foot higher, causing a little bit more weight. And they won't be carrying any more volume, which is why we're hoping that won't really affect the technical correction part of it, but we shall see. We're gonna talk a little San Simeon Well 3 here. We are bringing the VFD part of the project to you kind of informally here today. All the proposals that we had were just for the installation of the pump and the plumbing, and the motor. It will be hooked to our SCADA, so with our SCADA, it's kind of a sole source. Also with that, we're gonna take advantage while we have our SCADA guy out there, and we're gonna put a transducer in that will give us 24 hours, 365 days a year, information on our groundwater levels and our pumping well levels. So we'll have static levels full-time. We'll have drawdown and cone of depression levels, which kind of give you indicators as the health of your aquifer, the health of your motor and pump as well going in the future. And if this works out well, we're going to duplicate that then at our San Simeon Well 2. Obviously, in years to come, we'll have to budget that and cover that in the budget correctly. But we're looking at about 33. Cody, do you want to talk maybe on the VFD and why?
Yeah, the VFD was quoted about $33,000 by our automation guy. And the integration of the VFD into our SCADA system with the Allen Bradley is night and day compared to what other existing VFDs can do. Other VFDs technically can work, but require extensive integration for the adaptation. A comparison is fitting a Ford engine into a Dodge. Yes, it's an engine, but it'll take a lot of time to make it work. No one is saving money by sourcing another branded VFD. Doesn't pan out in the short or long run. It's cost prohibitive to bring in other brands to meet the needs of where we're going. Simple on and off is not the direction we're headed anymore. We're trying to future-proof our system with power data and other faults communicating through the system. The Allen Bradley works with our SCADA integration. Our automation guy built the infrastructure and he's the sole source. The other VFDs in our system are not fully integrated. The Yasukawa drive at SR4, he had to do a full workaround and his capabilities are limited with that. We're in the process of swapping out all of the Opto 22 components and upgrading to Allen Bradley. Opto 22 is not capable of the integration we need. One more comparison is comparing a flip phone to a smartphone. While they can both make phone calls, a smartphone knows how to run apps and process other information. Allen Bradley as a whole is very seamless. It communicates with each other, while Opto 22, we chose them earlier for the price point. Everywhere else, SR4 already has Allen Bradley components. Paso Robles, the Tascadero, the county, the SST program, and Advanced Water Treatment Plant all run Allen Bradley. Unless you can't afford it, Allen Bradley is the new standard. And then you could share parts within agencies. It's sourced out of Santa Maria for us. Other drives are farther out of the area. Royal is a supplier of Allen Bradley drives. They even had a rep come out to the well field, which is yet to happen with any other brand, VFD.
A couple of the reasons why we're doing this too. So SCADA is scientific control, right? And data acquisition. We want to be able to control our well fields remotely. Well, that'll cut down and off time, call outs after hours, just drives. Even when we're on here, if we can control the on off or the flow pacing, that's something we want to be able to do remotely. We think that'll be beneficial. And then we'll be able to also acquire all that data and then use it for our annual and monthly reports as well. While he's out there hooking up the VFD, we're going to incorporate that transducer and put that into our historic data. So that way we'll be able to have years and years of continual data that we can reference back to during drought years, during heavy rain years, and just be able to manage our aquifers more efficiently and more effectively. Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Cody.
So excuse me, the existing SCADA is something that is something you can go down the road with for quite a while, right?
Absolutely,
You're
yeah.
not looking to upgrade that anytime soon.
No, we did this upgrade to Ignition and some of these Allen Bradley things several years ago
Okay,
in the
good.
hopes of adapting that.
Sure.
You know, you tried it once, it's kind of a pilot project. It worked flawlessly. We got a lot less nuisance alarms and erroneous alerts,
Yeah,
especially in the middle of the night, so that's
Yeah.
beneficial. And then it integrated into our Ignition platform, which is a fantastic SCADA platform, which has unlimited IOs, so we can put
Yeah.
as many inputs and outputs out of there as we want going forward. So yeah,
cool.
that's what we want to duplicate at all of our
Yeah.
sites effectively, you
And there's a
know.
historian built into that, right?
There is, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. About 2 years ago, we did another, it's got cellular and landline backup to it. So
Oh,
we've
great.
got dual communication to it, should one go down, emergency or not. And then, yeah, it's storing all of it'll store up to 10 years of full data for 12 months
Right.
of, yeah, like every 30 seconds.
You can download that and analyze it any way you want.
Absolutely, yeah, good.
So when we talked about these quotes before for the replacement of the pump, we talked then about doing the VFD.
We did.
Hookup ourselves,
We
so.
did, yeah.
Okay, so,
We never intended that to be part of the pumper motor install
okay,
for the well field.
so. Sounds good to me. Everybody else?
What well is this again?
This is
SS3.
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 Yes.
Out of the San Simeon wells that we have, do we use SS3 the most?
2 and 3 the most.
2 and 3? the most?
Yeah, and on out of 2 and 3, there, you're always gonna have that well, it's in that spot, it's just more bulletproof. You know, SS3 has some issues. Well, obviously, we've had some performance issues now. So this year, we've used 2 a lot more, where it's been more like 75-25, but usually it's 50-50. And then, of course, SS1, we have the issue with groundwater under direct influence of surface water. So that's why we're not operating one. The benefit, you know, the good thing is, you know, water's flowing in the creek, it's fantastic, but unfortunately for us, we can't use SS1 because we don't have a surface water treatment plant there. It's just groundwater only. So, so yeah, 2 and 3 do all the heavy lifting for us.
Okay,
So it will be nice to get that SS3 upgraded so that way we're not putting so much use, because there's some days where we solely rely on SS2 for production.
okay.
All right, our transmission line and domestic water line and state parks or the wetlands. We had a little meeting with Shannon this morning. And we've also discussed the alternative last meeting, that alternative 3. They did a further look in on the fourth line. That was the one along Highway 1. We could open and trench there, but we're still hanging pipe on bridges, on the state parks bridge, and we're just not interested in doing that. So it was a great look into it. There would be some small cost savings while having an open trench instead of doing directional drilling, but we'd still have to do some more ground, you know, what am I trying to say? Geotech to figure out if there's any blockage in there. And then you're with a bunch of other utilities there, like fiber optics and so forth, that we really don't want to get anywhere near those lines. So I think we're still sticking with the third alternative, which goes to the board the 21st of this month for a resolution. There's some environmental permitting going on right now, but as soon as we can make that, get that resolution for that third alternative, we can begin with botanicals and wetland delineation. So botanical survey is just what it sounds like. What kind of plants are there? What kind of native plants we have? They have to do that obviously for the environment. And then a wetland delineation is determining the boundary between the uplands and the wetlands. And you'll have to come up with, we'll submit a report based on this, which includes methodology, delineation, soils, hydrology, vegetation data. And that will take place almost as soon as we can provide Canon, our go-ahead. Then the environmental consultant for them will go ahead and do that. And then they'll have to revisit that again in May or just before June, as that kind of spring to summer starts to change. And then they'll submit.
How about a soils? When do we do a soils analysis of that
We've-
path?
We've done soils.
You've done soils?
Yeah.
Oh.
Now that we picked the third and we want to extend it and go under the creek and go up a little bit further to our property there on Van Gordon. Those are the last kind of coring or bits we'll have to verify right
Yeah,
there.
that should be pretty solid.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to make sure there's no cobble or what else were they looking for is in the way, just basically cobble, right? That's a little bit.
Cobble and solid rock, anything that that the contractor should be aware of when they come out to do it, so they make sure they have the correct bits with them and that they know that it's there so they can plan for it.
So in that alignment 3, they're basically gonna be drilling right underneath that San Simeon Creek, aren't they?
They will,
Mhm.
yeah, we'll be about 10 feet.
And they feel pretty confident with the soils after looking at the soils that it's
Yes,
pretty doable,
yes.
without fracking.
Yeah, that was honestly their first alignment choice,
Yeah,
their
yeah,
preference.
right, that was
was
their
there.
preference, right.
Yeah, and then it said, well, instead of hooking up here on, on that Washburn Road on State Park's property, let's just keep going another couple hundred feet and let's get it on our property and make the connection
Right.
right there.
That
We
makes
can use that as a staging area. There's more benefits to that too. And then we're getting both pipes off State Park's bridge.
Yeah.
And you saw the images of what's holding up those two pipes
Yeah,
for the last
It's a little-
That's
40
really
years.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a little scary. So yeah, anytime we can get away from other stakeholders or shareholders and, get it on our property, I think that's a benefit to us.
So their recommendation being state parks is to abandon everything and leave it? Are they requiring us to? remove it?
We've reached out to state parks. I have personally twice, and Canon has reached out to them as well. And they say, hey, we're willing to work with you. We'll help you provide guidance for permitting. And then we haven't had any response back.
Just
Because
shut-
we're looking to get a right of entry, so we need an ROE, and then we want to have some talks on abandonment. And obviously, we don't want to, I'm sure they don't want us to dig up 3,000 foot of pipe and pull it back out of their wetlands. So yeah, there's some things that we have to reach an accord with state parks on, and those are
You're
the two.
you're referring to the HDPE that's on that surface, just laying on the surface?
No, I'm talking about abandoning what we have. We'll take that HDPE.
Yeah.
That's $250,000 HDPE. We'll find some use somewhere someday.
You're talking
that.
about the pipes.
I'm
that
talking
go
about,
under
yeah,
the-
Yeah, the
Currently-
lines that we want,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to get their permission
Got
to go ahead and abandon those in place.
yeah.
And then to have a new ROE or a new easement underground for our new sections, that will be 10 feet apart as well. So I think with that kind of wraps up everything exciting for me that's new and fresh.
Okay, anybody have any more questions for him? No? Anybody in the public on the utility manager's report? Okay, I don't see any hands. We can go ahead and move on, and this is a public comment on any item of interest within the jurisdiction of this committee, but not on the agenda today. Does anybody have any public comment on items not on the agenda today? No? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, so we will be reviewing the minutes from our last meeting. Does anyone have any corrections or changes that they see needing to be done to the minutes from February 12th?
This is so minor, and I just have a spelling, 1C on the chair report, and it's easy to get my name wrong. But there is a spelling error in that paragraph. If you'd be so kind to have that fixed.
Where is that?
1C chair report.
Oh, you know what? I proofread this for him and I missed that too. I'm sorry.
It's so minor.
It's normally I before E except after C, but
Yeah.
it's your name.
I'm sorry
It's
about
easy to
that.
get wrong. It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Okay, anything else? Is your name spelled correctly the rest of the way?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's just a typo. No, everything else is good.
And if there's no other changes, then we have a motion to approve the minutes as written with the correction of Miss Amaday's name and under item 1C chair report.
Oh, motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay. So we had a motion by Mark Meeks and a second by Stephen Seaver. Roll call. Mr. Meeks.
Aye.
Mr. Seaver.
Aye.
Ms. Amador.
Hi,
And Mr. Williams.
Aye.
So we have 4 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
Chair Dean, if we could, buy some time for Tony, because obviously he's in that SST meeting. If we can kind of,
You want to change the order of the agenda?
yeah, we have that, we have DPR coming up next, which I'll address, but if we could move B to D, or swap B for D.
Sure. You want to move B for after D?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do the direct potable reuse first.
Yes.
Okay,
So some exciting stuff from the State Water Resources Control Board on December 19th. They approved regulations allowing water systems to develop treatment protocols to convert wastewater into high-quality drinking water. This was a unanimous vote by the board back on the 19th of December. And it gives California the most advanced standards in the nation for treating wastewater to such an extent that finished product water meets or exceeds current drinking water standards. It's known as direct potable reuse, or like we like to refer it as to DPR. Rather than kind of read you verbatim my whole report or cite off the 62-page document, we've kind of highlighted some things here. We did put a link there. There are some, well, if you're into it, give it a read. It was an interesting read for me.
Yeah.
I read it all.
Yeah, there's some, well, it's always the little caveats they kind of tuck in there that are really important, which are, Tristan's kind of put together a highlighted list of it here. So Tristan, do you want to?
Yeah, I was figuring you and I could work,
Sure.
present this together, so I'll start with the first item. So one of the, I guess the first thing about the DPR is that they were anticipating that the source water would be municipal wastewater. So straight from the wastewater plant to tap.
And not pre-treated in any way.
Oh, and I mean, it would be, yeah, you get tertiary treatment at the wastewater plant and then from there, advanced water
Okay.
treatment.
Which, for right now, we don't have tertiary treatment at the wastewater plant.
Oh,
Even after this SST upgrade, there will not be a tertiary component to it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of unclear whether the current WRF source 9P7 would qualify under this or not. There have been other things that have come up since then that might influence that one way or another. So the first thing we required is an engineering report. This would be a comprehensive overview of the entire project from an engineering perspective, describing in very, very, very exacting detail exactly what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, and how, and from the technical side, how you're gonna meet these standards, every single one of them, and there are 62 pages worth that then cite other codes. So it's actually a lot longer than that. And then you also, as part of the engineering report, need to do a characterization of the wastewater that's coming in. So you know what it is that you're gonna try to be focusing on in order to remove. And part of that characterization of the municipal wastewater is going to the source of the wastewater itself and making sure that people aren't dumping anything illegal into your system that you might then either have to remove in large quantities. And then this report's got to be updated every 5 years. You write it once, now you got every 5 years, you got to write it again as conditions change, technology changes, and so on and so forth.
So to operate the plant, the chief plant operator must have a T5 license. So right now, I believe there's only one T5 plant in the county. Right.
Oh, for, T5.
Yeah, I'm just showing it by comparison. So that's a very difficult license to get, especially in our county. I believe Lopez is the only T5 plant, so that has to do with a volume of production and then metrics of treatment as well. And usually the methods of treatment, many other municipalities and agencies have, but it's that huge volume that kind of gets you up to that T5 status. We're talking in the, tens of millions of gallons a day. That
Wow.
treatment there. So that will be a difficult piece to find or maintain for this plant. Your lead shift operators must have a T3 or higher. And a CPO or lead operator must physically be present at the site during all operations. So if you're operating 24/7, this will need staffing of a T3 or higher for 24 hours a day. The monitoring plan,
Hold on, just to stop you there.
sure.
So the chief plant operator must hold a T5 license. They must also hold an advanced water treatment
Right.
plant grade 5 license. Which is even harder to get, because as far as I know, there's only 3 plants in the entire state that operate at that level. So
Can this-
you
can-
need experience, significant
Very
experience at
narrow.
one of those
Yeah.
to be able to even get the license to operate a plant like the DPR plant.
So, and that can't be done remotely, that's gotta be like on site, right?
Absolutely not.
Years
You
of
need
experience
operators on
on
site.
site.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you just give me a little background on the process of this new process? Is it like vastly different from the way we're treating water now? Is it like completely different?
No, so like the AWTP, the WRF would be the plant that would turn that after tertiary into high level or high quality drinking water.
Okay, so it's like an RO process.
Right, yeah. The RO is more the salty briny removal,
Yeah,
whereas that membrane or ultrafiltration is more the biological or the contaminant side of it, the coliform, the bacterial side
Yeah.
removed that you have in wastewater.
Yeah.
So the plant that we have on that end of it would be very applicable for this.
Okay.
Right now, that plant is a 6 log. So there's, when we talk log removal, like our surface water treatment plants that we have are about 3-4 log removal. That plant's a 6 log removal. What the Division of Drinking Water wants is a 20 log removal,
right.
which is very difficult. That's why they're talking about high quality drinking water out of it. The regulations for this are higher than any other surface water treatment plant or any other treatment process that we currently have or maintain in the state.
So what kind of infrastructure would we need to add to do direct potable reuse? Reuse?
After our SST upgrade, we'd need a tertiary treatment. And then we just plumb it directly to the WRF.
Okay,
After
but
that.
what's involved with putting in tertiary treatment?
Tertiary treatment, we've actually done some research on that and
I believe it was going to be around $3 million for a package tertiary treatment portion. And that's 2 million for the actual package.
the plant, the
Tanks,
treatment plant
tanks,
itself.
right, the tanks, the controls, all that stuff. And then another 1 million for the engineering to install it.
Mhm.
Okay, and so this will still go through the WRF
Absolutely.
after the tertiary treatment?
Yes.
And so is it direct injected into our distribution system? Does it go up to our well field and come from our wells, or is it?
Well, so that would be direct injection is when you put it back into groundwater and then that would come back up. So that's what we already have, right? This would be direct reuse plumbed right into our system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
It would come
this-
off the effluent of the treatment plant, the WRF, and we could plumb it right into our 14-inch main line that we have there in San Simeon Creek Road.
Okay, so this does not go through our well field, so this does not
would not.
count as part of the
It would not count as
799.
diversion, no,
Okay,
either
So-
wet or dry season.
so if it's not counted as the 799 license diversion, can this be counted as supplemental water supply?
Yes. We think right now, we'd have
think.
we'd have to verify that. Of course, we'd have to verify that with, Division of Drinking Water.
Okay,
From
so,
what we've been told is yes.
okay, so if you're doing tertiary treatment on the wastewater
Mhm.
and then running it through the WRF, what effect does that have of the fact that we're putting the treated wastewater in the percolation ponds to prevent seawater intrusion. If you're running it in through, through tertiary treatment and putting it through the WRF, you still would have to do something in the percolation pond
We'd have
to
to,
keep the berm.
we could not take 100% of wastewater and treat it. We would have to put at least probably a third to maybe even 50% in that percolation pond to maintain that saltwater wedge between that and our potable water in our well field.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so if you have,
we cannot displace that much water from there.
okay, so if you have to continue to put a third of it into the percolation ponds, how much water do you think we would gain from doing this tertiary treatment in the direct potable use?
We'd probably get a good 300 acre feet just off of direct. Mhm.
Is this something that's mandated or is this something we're looking at it as a,
It's not mandated,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But it's allowing you the ability to develop these protocols for it.
Before I go to the public, does anybody else on that committee have a question? Okay, and I'm sure Mr. Pearson and Mr. Dudzik have questions.
First, your hand was up.
No, no, no. No, I don't, I had great job of explaining the whole
Okay.
thing and how much we're gonna get
Thanks.
and everything. And as long as the coastal commission thinks that it's a new water source, as they put it, why, I think it's a great idea.
It would really be the county's call to verify. I think some other projects they have been brought forth and there wasn't enough volume or so much out of that they consider it a new source, but on our brief informal discussions that we've had with the county recently, they seem to think that, again, they're not giving us 100% thumbs up, but from the discussion we've had with tertiary going through this, they would informally consider it a new source.
And would the coastal commission have a say as well?
If it was appealed to them, they would have to chime in, you bet.
Okay,
So you can guarantee, yes, they would have to have a say because somebody will appeal it.
okay. Mr. Dudzik?
Have you, obviously, we're all just getting familiar with these new, this new opportunity. Have you had do you have a plan for, kind of putting together a straw man, if you will, project plan? And if so, when?
We kind of have some talks, Tristan and I, Cody, about where we'd put it. We don't really have the footprint at the plant right now to put it. It would make more sense to put it at the percolation ponds, which would be right next to the advanced water treatment plant. There you could have a bypass where you could we could even hook it up to SCADA where we could bypass to percolation ponds during dry season or wet season, whenever, and then bypass and put it to tertiary, which would go plumb directly to our advanced water treatment plant. So we're kind of in the staging and footprint, and so we're just in the basics of it right now, but so that's kind of our initial thought process with that.
So this would be, and then, an alternative to go into the additional water supply, options as a 300 acre foot per year addition, plus or minus.
Again, Dennis, I throw around the term portfolio, but I really stand behind that. Like, we're going to need a portfolio of options or sources going forward.
Sounds great.
So, but we don't know yet if the county would consider that as a new supplemental water supply. I
That
think
was
you
kind of-
said it was up to them and it depended on how much volume we're talking about.
Right,
Okay,
right.
so if you're talking about putting possibly by the percolation ponds,
Mhm.
is that part of the ESHA we're still working on with the coastal commission?
No, that right there is actually out of coastal
That's out of that,
jurisdiction. It is.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Throwing a layer in there.
Hmm?
So what about the concentrations of the wastewater? Is there any sort of, fallout from that? Would it be any, problems? Would that present any more problems?
No, I think that's kind of when you get to when you get into the characterization of the quality of the municipal wastewater. So that's where they're talking about when you have this engineering plan, what's, when you're talking about the raw source,
Yeah.
like what is, we're gonna be doing samples, they're gonna be evaluating it, and then you're basically creating a tertiary treatment plant specifically for those I'm gonna call them constituents
Mhm.
in the inventory.
Yeah.
And that's how you develop that, because the advanced water treatment plant is just that. It's set up to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah,
So that tertiary treatment would have to take that heavy load off of the advanced water treatment plant prior to it. It would have to
so it's
do,
downstream of the water, of the existing water treatment plant now, correct? Would it be, is that, I'm trying to.
say that again. So
visualize
the
it.
tertiary treatment would be.
No, I mean, this new, technology, this new plant, would it be downstream of the existing plant now? So it would go through the water treatment that we're doing now, then it would go to this newer system?
No, it would go tertiary first. It would be upstream if I'm following you correctly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's upstream of that, okay.
right. Yeah, it would go through that process before we're going. We know that the advanced water treatment plant is a 6-stage or a 6-log removal. So we'd have to get at least 14 out of this tertiary treatment. So that's where you'd be designing and engineering this plant to do.
I see.
But more components can be added to the WRF, can't they, to increase
We
its,
could,
its capability?
One area we could do, we only have one train for ultra filtration or membrane filtration. We could double or triple that up to account for that, to help reduce your log removal in that stage.
Okay, so if this is, some of this is based on the characteristics or the ingredients of your wastewater.
Right.
Whatever you're calling them, it's possible that based on that study, you might have to put some restrictions out to the public on what they're putting in the wastewater.
Yeah, the chemicals, the fats, the fog, that's the biggest problem right there
Yeah.
for any treatment.
I was gonna say, actually, the chemicals like xylene, benzene, acetone, those are the ones you definitely really don't want in this process.
They shouldn't be putting those
They
down
shouldn't be
there
putting those
anyway.
down there anyway,
Please
but,
Yeah,
um,
you can drop them off in Morrow for free.
exactly.
Yeah,
So, if they're open, but yes. So we know that our wastewater system has a lot of I&I, so our inventory is already being watered down before it gets to the plant, especially on high flow days. So what we'd be looking at is actually like a more concentrated approach to this treatment or filtration plant.
okay. So,
Did you want to chime in on anything on tertiary treatment or anything, Tony?
Tertiary. So what was the treatment that you were, I mean, tertiary could be a cloth filter. But, what you guys are talking about is, order of magnitude of
Well,
several times greater than that.
Yeah, it'll be more than a cloth filter.
Yeah, $3 million. times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$3 million is nothing.
Many logs more.
yeah.
Well,
So
we need to-
I'm not sure what process you guys were thinking of on that, so.
we were looking at adding a membrane bioreactor component to the AV train.
MBR?
Yeah,
Mhm.
so do we need to finish upgrading the rest of the wastewater treatment plant before we did something like this?
Before we
Complete
go into like a
SSC.
scope of work for engineering, yes.
Okay, so we're not
Yeah.
ready to like bring this before the board or anything yet?
No.
Okay,
In fact, the bioreactor that Tristan's referring to would actually do better right after the mixed liquor treatment part
okay,
of that.
yeah, in
So-
place of the secondary clarifiers.
Yeah.
okay.
Mm,
Any other questions?
No, I just feel like it's really good forward thinking. Like I like the word portfolio, you know, in the sense that more I'm reading and what's going on in other areas. It's just really critical with all that's happening with climate change. So to have the forward thinking is positive.
mhm.
Okay.
Thank you. Very informative.
So we have several members of the public on Zoom. Does anybody have any questions on this topic? I'm not seeing any hands. So Tony is here. Do you want to go ahead and keep the order of the agenda?
We'll continue with the order if you like, and
Okay. So
you can rest my voice for a little bit. And, listen to Tony.
okay, Tony.
Okay, this is for,
Does everybody have a copy of in addition to what's in the agenda packet, I asked to have a description of the ECMs we're gonna be talking about, the updates on, as handouts. Did everybody get one? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, are we on?
We're on 4B.
So,
4B. Tony's here to resumed our original.
okay, ECM one, we took the south digester tank offline because we were having problems with our ponds, and we violated a couple of times last month in February. So we took, the south digester offline, pulled off one pond and started pumping into the pond, or pumping that pond into the south digester, decanting off all the clear water off the top and pumping the solids back into the north digester, so that we can bring our total suspended solids back into line with our permit. And so today we are putting that back online for, to allow for inspection on the 1st of April. ECM two, ECM one or ECM two influent lift station. We are talking with
Southland?
we're talking to, find out, we're trying to get a price from Southland on the cost to keep lift station B4 in the project. ECM three, we get so ECM three, the pumps that we have right now for the modified, or for our RAS and WAS, we're downsizing because our RAS pumps are way oversized. Right now, they're running at 20 hertz. And that's to allow them, in case of a train, we lose a train, we can put both, or all the effluent through one train. So we needed to, what's happening is that we need to downsize our, or we need a procedure to allow us, if we have to run on one train, to allow us to use the smaller pump and supplement that pump using the WAS pump through normal system times. And we are still trying to work that through. Also, we're looking at using a backup pump in lieu of that so that we can maintain controls off of the existing system.
You have several acronyms in this agenda packet for that item that some people may not know what they stand for. So if you want to go ahead and say what RAS, WES, and DO and ORP are.
Okay, RAS is return activated sludge, and that's the material that you bring back to the front of the plant to supplement the incoming, or supplement the bugs, so that they can consume, you have enough bugs that consume the new wastewater coming in, basically. WAS is wasted activated sludge. That is what we pump off to a separate tank, and we remove the solids out of that and send that to the basically to the valley for processing. DO is dissolved oxygen. That's one of the ingredients that we feed the bugs in the plant. ORP is, help me out.
Oxygen reduction.
Oxidation reduction potential. probe, yeah.
Potential probes. Those are for the anoxic zones, and basically that's gonna give the signal to how fast you return your recirc pumps back to the front of the plant also. Right now, we only have one blower that they're providing. We can only afford one blower to the aeration basins. And so we need to develop a backup plan to use the existing blowers, which are considerably larger than the one blower. And that means that we have to vent off air so that we can maintain that plant in or prevent damage to the plant when we use the existing blowers. ECM 4, the blowers have been resubmitted for coatings. Actually, they have come back and have been approved by the engineers, and basically the district needs to approve the final coatings on those. ECM 5, RAS and WAS improvements. Yeah, like I mentioned before, we still have to develop a procedure for operating the RAS and WAS pumps during single train operations. ECM 8 and 7 and 8 are electrical upgrades and backup power. APCD has approved new plant generator, and meter section has been approved. These are still 12 to 18 months out. And we're working with the electrician on how to integrate the install and maintain the plant in operation while we route new distribution lines through the mechanical or the mechanical systems. And that's what I've got.
So you basically need another backup generator to run it while you're putting in the generator.
Right,
Not necessarily.
but, well,
Okay, does anybody have any questions, or do you want to add anything before we get questions, or? I think you covered it.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody on the committee have any questions?
Tony, you're trying to get funding back in for the stations B1 and B4. Do you have priorities? Is B4 the priority over B1 if we can't get funding for both of them?
B4 is the priority. We already know that we can't get funding for B1. B1, they're going to give us a basic engineering cost to put B1 back in place so that we know how much it would cost to put in or do the engineering for B1.
Okay.
And we pretty much pulled that out of the project. We're just gonna get a estimate for
Yeah.
engineering.
in about a week or so, Southland, they've done it internally, but they want to, verify it amongst their team. But yeah, we'll have those engineering costs for B4 and B1 separately coming to us soon, so.
Okay.
But B4 is definitely our priority.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody in the public have any questions on the SST project that we just talked about? Not seeing any hands. Go ahead and move on to 4C. And this was an interesting topic.
Wasn't it? This is, so This is to present a contract for consultant services with Trupani for a water service line material inventory and then assistance with our lead service line reporting requirements. A little over 6 months ago, the State Water Resources Control Board dropped a date of October 16th, 2024 on all agencies, public agencies in California, stating that we will research and develop a way to indicate what we've done this for years, where we indicate what our main is, what our supply lines to the meter is. We now have to go to each individual's house, each customer's house, every service that we have, and identify and label, categorize where there is lead, non-lead, galvanized requiring replacement, or lead service unknown, nomenclature of what's on the other side of the meter and where it goes into the house at every customer's house. So 4,036 services that we have, we will have to validate and memorialize what's at just past the meter and what is going into the house. We will also have to make a website or a web link available that the community, the public anywhere can query or research to see what their house is and what materials they have on their house. And like I said, this is all mandatory and it is due October 16th. So we're not website creators or writers. We don't have anyone on staff that's that great at that, or I don't think has ever taken that on. So a couple things with this. We're doing our register, our meter upgrade, which is for us fantastic timing, because we'll be at every single one of those 4,036 services, replacing the registers at the very least coming up in the next 6 months. So with that, at least we'll have the physical part of that done. What we need Trupani's help on is making this, is helping us meet our reporting requirements, creating the report, creating this link or this website that have to be downloaded to the Division of Drinking Water, State Water Resources Control Board. And of course, we'll put it on our very own website for ease of access. But then we'll have to put all that information together and make it, of course, queryable and, you know, give it all these identifications and nomenclature that's as being required by the State Water Resources Control Board.
And I was said, we're also required to notify all customers who have lead, galvanized requirement replacement or unknown service lines of their status, and we must do that yearly. Send out a letter reminding them, by the way, your service line is unknown, or it's lead or galvanized requiring replacement.
Is that just for the service line, not what's inside the house?
And
No.
correct.
Just, yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, that's where they're having you get on the other side of the meter, because in their meter box, you can dig away and shell away at it and find out. And then you'll see what's stubbing up. So most of the time it's PVC coming off the meter and you got copper coming up. And so I think they're using some sort of percentage right in between to evaluate the material. Obviously, you're not gonna put lead in the middle of those somewhere, so the averages of that go down. But yeah, once it goes into the house, I'm hoping that stays the homeowner's responsibility. That could change. That could change. That might be next year's rollout for 2026.
Customer side of the meter.
It is the
Every
customer
meter.
side, every meter, commercial, residential. Yes, Derek.
Okay.
So
Yes.
your plan is to document this as you're changing out the registers, right?
Yes.
And Bonnie's just going to basically compile the database and create a website.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do the
I was
physical.
gonna say, yeah, that we're part of that,
They'll do
part of the
physical,
P is doing the physical. Yeah, there was another company we were looking at. We're just gonna do the database side of it, but Trupani's actually gonna come out and do
To the
the
unknowns.
physical.
Right.
Yeah, and what they're gonna do is they might not evaluate every single one, but they're gonna evaluate enough of them to use a statistical model
Right.
to predict.
Read that.
Yeah, and
And you could tell what kind of pipe it is just by looking in the meter box?
Most of the time, yes.
Okay, because,
Unless that meter actually extends past the meter box into the earth or some other landscaping or whatever, yeah, but for the most part, I'm gonna say probably about 90%. You know, all of our meter connectors go onto that service line after the meter that we can verify. We can put a visual on it.
okay,
Yeah,
Well, also where it comes up, if it comes up copper, you can't see it at the meter, but if it comes up copper at the house, then you can pretty much assume it's gonna be.
oh, so you look at where the pipe comes up at the house
out
too?
the house too,
Okay,
yes.
because I was gonna
That's
say, I know.
that's the easy part. It's getting into the meter. So
Yeah.
fortunately, we're doing this meter upgrade program. but we like True Pond because they can kind of help us do, if we get running. My priority is obviously meters and getting this in and getting the data from meters and getting all of our meters up and running. So running this concurrently, I was a little worried with us being able to. We're gonna put this on the installers too. We'll have a little form that they check off as they put in the registers. So when they verify, because they're gonna be cleaning out the box to install this anyways. So if there was any sort of failure to do that, or, you know, them being effective at doing that, True Pond could kind of help in and help us get this done. Because obviously we want to hit this drop dead date of just October 16th and be there before.
And this is a not to exceed cost, so it doesn't matter how much of this they have to do
Correct?
for us.
Yes.
It's still that same price.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have some obligations on our end to give them plans, you know, anything that we
Yes.
have
Anything we have, yeah.
that can show
We'll
Yes.
be
what
giving
these
them
lines are.
at a minimum, the material in the service line on our side of the meter.
Can you just do that electronically? Is
And then-
that stuff all electronic now?
We do.
Pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think people would want to know if their pipes going to their house have lead.
I know, I think it's a fantastic idea to shoulder it on some of the smaller water agencies and utilities.
Yeah, that was my next question. I'm wondering what grants were available from the State Water Resource Board.
Right.
I mean, that is a lot to put on small
Yeah,
districts.
It
it
is.
is.
Yeah.
This is probably all fallout from that municipality. It was in the mid-states or that, the big
Yeah,
lead.
it's
that
the
board.
Flint, it's based on the Flint. That was about 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
this is how long kind of government takes to catch up with this. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is definitely a repercussion of that.
Yeah.
But that was completely a treatment failure problem. It was
Yeah.
too acidic and it leached in the lines, and those ductile iron lines caused all those problems there. So it'd be hard for me to think that
Is that what
the water
happened?
treatment agency didn't know what they were doing.
Is that
Because you
right?
have to do system samples in California. Maybe they're a little bit more laxed in Michigan than we are. I doubt it, but
So we
I don't.
created a low pH that went out in the distribution system and just ate away the ductile iron.
Yep.
And there's lead in there.
Mhm. Mhm. So yeah, this is definitely derivative of that. And while I do think it's a good program to have, I think the timeline was a bit aggressive.
That
For the
was
State
my-
Water Resources
When did they
Control
roll
Board.
that?
For 10 years and they only give us like 6 months.
Yeah,
Yeah, is it 6 months?
no, it was
Essentially?
about like in October, November last year.
So,
But everyone's kind of scrabbling to wrap their heads around it, because
Yeah.
their initial, it wasn't like the DPR that came out that said, okay, here's your numbers, here's your MCLs you gotta hit. You know, this is, you're gonna have to do this kind of sampling, you're gonna have to look at this. It was, yeah, well, you're gonna need to get service line information on the other side of the meter, and then it was like, well, yeah, and then going into the house. And so everyone was struggling. I was, you know, communicating with my network, like, how are you guys gonna do it? Talking to the guys in Paso, how are you guys gonna do that?
Yeah.
Because they have Alexanders running around reading their meters. I'm like, you gonna have Alexanders take that for you? And they're like, absolutely not. You know, they can barely get their meter reads right, much less what the material is on the other side of the meter. So it was a bit of a struggle for everybody. So while we're kind of in a time crunch too, we're one of the last people that True Pawnee are taking on there, because they're so inundated. People are still calling with it.
Right.
And they wouldn't have even taken this. But due to our size, they thought, okay, that's in a digestible, you know, contract that we could sign up for and still perform it. So that's why we're kind of pushing this as aggressively as we are, because it is, all in all, it's gonna come down on us. We're gonna shoulder the cost for it, and we're gonna need to get it done. So
Okay, anybody else?
Question here.
Okay.
I think you sort of answered this on task 5. I noticed task 5 was partially named annual update. And I was wondering if there's a cost implication of that. This annual update, I take it then is what you were talking about every year. If a customer has not upgraded their line, they have to be reminded to do it. And that's all taken care of in this cost. Yeah. Was that
For the
right?
first year or two, I believe, yeah.
First year or two.
And then after
Right.
that, it's gonna be our
And then
responsibility.
it would be our responsibility.
Absolutely.
Okay.
and what we're hoping in that first year, because we still do lead and copper testing every year. We have, what is it, 34 or 20?
It's what, 2 years or?
It's every 2 years, but we go to probably at least 30 residences, and we sample for lead and copper. I think 28 out of the 30 are non-detect, and the other 2 are very low. But we're hoping those people that have those lead or those low samples that are detectable is in the 2 years, or within the 2 years after this, that they'll go ahead and do upgrades to their own services.
Okay.
So that way we can kind of check those off the box and be through that. Yeah, there's not a lot of lead. That 1986
I think that
was the so that's the year that they took, the lead out of the pipe, or no lead pipes, no lead solder,
Solder, yeah.
or sweating copper.
And no lead in brass anymore
No
either.
more 50/50 comp.
Yeah, yeah.
The other question was, this is going pretty fast. Was this done on an RFP? Is this an emergency action on our part? What is the story on? Yeah.
It's
don't wanna
kind of-
put you on the,
yeah.
on the hot seat, but
No.
I was gonna ask that. too.
It is kind of an emergency because we don't want to
Okay.
lose True Pond.
Right,
True
okay.
Pond is a great partner. We've seen like their customer portal or what the web page is gonna look like. And it's fantastic. It's good work. It's better. We were looking at 120 water before. We had started with 120 water back. I think
Year ago.
we immediately jumped on this. And our legal counsel and their legal counsel could not reach an accord. So this is after months and months and months. So here we are, February, a month ago, and like, council's like, no way. These guys are jerks. We're not going with them. So then we sought other bids and proposals and
We went to what, Blue Conduit?
Blue Conduit.
And then we told them our backstory and they said, we're not a good fit for you. Here's True Pawnee.
Okay, so we did get multiple, we looked at multiple.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you know that,
Yes.
that's gonna be asked.
Yeah.
It's not sole source.
No,
Got
no,
it. Okay.
it's not sole source. And fortunately for us, we got the reference from Blue Conduit. And we fit pretty well with this True Pawnee and the way they want to proceed with this. So, yeah, we're hoping that we can reach a resolution for this.
Thanks.
Okay, then,
But yeah, it is kind of on the more timelier side of things. Yeah, I'm not
Right.
saying it's emergency yet, but time can go by pretty quick and,
if it's due by October.
It's pretty
it is.
close.
Yeah, and that's finished product. That's not just, field inquiries or site visits. That's finished product.
When are you gonna start replacing registers on meters?
We're hoping within probably 1 month, 6 weeks. We're trying to figure out the finance piece. We've got meters to finance a portion of. I've encumbered a lot through the years and built up these reserves, but now, I guess I looked at the strategic meeting and it feels like the majority of it was all utilities related, but we've got so many projects out. We've got the effluent line and the domestic line from the water field. That's going to be a $2 million install. We've already paid for the engineering and development of that, so that's covered, but we're gonna need 2 million to install that. The tanks, that 375 and what I've uncovered in the budget should cover that, but we might need, because we're moving, we're gonna need pads now, so we're probably looking at another $250,000 investment into that. And then, meters are gonna be 1 to 2 million, depending if we want to replace the brass body and that. But in October, funding, and it's just $500,000, I say just $500,000 of funding, but in October, funding closes, or the submission application date closes. And we're working with that on our current, we have a grant writer on staff right now. So we're looking really heavily at getting that $500,000 and using that to replace the brass next year and just replace it in one shot, rather than the staged approach and, potentially costing the whole project.
Could be an
over 10 years.
ROI on that too, once you get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we're kind of thinking of to kind of help fund some of these mechanisms. But yeah, water's got some big projects going on, not to mention the huge one in wastewater as well. So we're trying to figure out that finance piece out. So that's really the only thing that's kind of holding us up. We want to kind of strike once at this. So we're working very closely with Denise.
Trying to keep your head above water.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
No,
Yeah, every
absolutely.
time intended.
Mhm.
I haven't heard that.
Keep our head above recycled water.
Yeah.
But yeah,
If you watch the strategic plan workshop, and I know we had one member of the public that's sat there through the whole thing. The utilities department had the biggest load on its shoulder, water, wastewater, and
Oh, yeah,
WRF had
sure.
the biggest load on
So-
their shoulder.
and kind of on a side note, I mean, I really think we're kind of help developing the community for years to come. Myself personally, I always want to leave like a lasting legacy that's positive. I don't want to leave in 5-10 years down the road here and retire and say, gosh, dang, that utility director we have, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. Well, he was here. I never want that. So I want to do the right thing. I want to do the right thing for the generations going forward, not just for the right now. So
Very good.
that's why we're looking at all these, and trying to get these all done quickly.
Okay, does anybody in the public have any questions before we make a motion? I don't see any hands up. Okay, so this is a discussion and consideration to recommend to the board of the directors to approve the contract with Trupani for service line material inventory and assistance with lead service line reporting requirements. Do I have a motion to approve?
By motion.
Okay, so Mark, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, do a roll call. Mr. Meeks?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Amadei? Aye. Mr. Seaver?
Aye.
Okay, we have 4 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent. Mr. Webb is absent. Okay. Moving on to 4B, we had some updates to the report that we got last month from our supplemental water supply ad hoc committee. So they're bringing that back to us to get a little bit more information before we forward this report to the board. So who wants to take the lead on this?
I'll take the lead on this. So the main, you got a few, a little bit of direction at the last month's meeting. One of the pieces of direction we're going to include in a new memorandum, so it's not included here. The only thing included in this memorandum is we did get direction to ask for costs for some of the geophysical aquifer mapping. And so the costs have been added here. They're on page 44 of your packet now. These are general costs, kind of to allow budgeting purposes or such. They aren't specific to our site because we haven't decided where we would want to do any of this mapping or the number of sites we'd want to look at. We did reach out to one of the geophysical, a group called Geophysical Imaging Systems, who does this work, and they gave us the cost for the T10 costs. And we reached out to Greg Drilling in Southern California, who does a lot of the CPT work, and got a proposal for them for a number of CPT probes. And that's where that cost came from. So the total cost roughly is $40,000. That's very rough, though. That's very much order of magnitude. We would need to provide both of these contractors maps of where we wanted them to go. For example, the T-TIM survey is that 18,000 is just 1 day of field work. It includes mobilization, demobilization, doing the reporting, inverting all the data, but it's just 1 day. I asked about it and he said, oh, we can do dozens to 100 acres in a day. So it seemed like a reasonable cost there.
Okay, did you get estimates for the one where the helicopter flies over?
I did not get estimates of the helicopter. I think that will probably be more than we need, but I could get estimates. I can get estimates for those.
Okay, because there may be other areas that we might be able to look at where pulling the sled behind might not be as practical. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Right, yeah, so we, at the RAC meeting, the Water Resources Advisory Council that we were at, that's just and I were at last Wednesday, gosh, who did it? Was it? They had the image of it up there, and so it looked like a pretty large unit that goes behind the helicopter.
It is, yes.
Is the side-by-side or the utility vehicle version a little bit smaller? Because what we had in mind, the topography was varied, it was very steep. And I was wondering, would you be able to take like a side-by-side towing or dragging this thing behind you and be able to utilize that on something that had some steeper varying topography?
I don't know that answer. They usually tow them behind sort of quad runner
Right.
ATV
Yeah, that's kind of
vehicles,
what
and
I-
I imagine anything it can go over would be okay. They are sleds though.
Okay.
Basically, so they're being pulled on runners, so you wouldn't want anything that's too probably rocky and rough or anything like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I'd kind of thought about, like a ranch quad towing something about 6 or 8 feet behind it.
right, that's
And
exactly
just
it.
kind of, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So do you want to get together with this ad hoc committee and kind of look at the areas you're looking at?
Yes.
So that they can get an
Yes.
idea of an estimate of what
mhm.
would be feasible to do the tow behind, or
Right.
what would be better with a helicopter, and get some, bring back a report and get some, you know,
Absolutely.
ideas and
Yeah.
costs for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we could specify some other locations. that
Okay.
we've been thinking
Okay,
of.
and then we could update the cost or in this memorandum at that point.
Yeah,
Okay,
Or maybe we could bring a staff report back for some specific areas,
Yes.
more specific dollar amounts
yeah,
regarding those studies. Okay.
okay. And then, Mark, I think you were gonna bring us back some information on this, the hydro panels,
Yeah, I need to follow up on that because I reached out to Source and, they didn't get back to me.
I got some more information for
Oh,
you.
did you?
Yes.
Oh, you're on it.
So, one hydro panel kit for residential is $29.50, and that includes, the water lines in the tank. This just produces 1.3 gallons, and it has to be on a flat roof. But I got costs for multiple units, if you wanna, I'll give all this to you.
Sure. We like $29.50, like $29.50?
No.
Okay.
2,900.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was assuming, but I just want to make that clear for our public.
Big pen, yeah.
It's $2,950, and it depends on where it's gonna be mounted and stuff.
I'll be mounted.
And that includes, a 4.5 gallon tank and the whole home connection kit, and that's for one panel. And the panel mounts at a 45-degree angle on the roof, and it has to be on a flat roof.
Which is
or
why you couldn't
flat-
put it on a pitch roof. because-
Or flat ground. I got, some estimates
Yeah,
for
I've seen all these.
multiple units.
Uh-huh.
I got a thing on what the climate how the climate affects the production.
Okay.
Okay, so ultimately it needs a full sunshiny day. The more cloud cover it is, the less,
Effective.
Effective it is.
Production, yeah.
yeah, and so, I got that. They're basically 4x8. And the height of them is almost 4 feet at the high point where it's on the thing.
45-degree plane.
Yeah, the 45-degree incline. And so if you go on, and I didn't print that off, but if you go on Forbes.
Yeah.
Look at their review on Forbes, it tells you basically over a certain period of time. The cost of the unit based on what you're saving and all of that, it's got a calculation of
Okay.
the cost benefits of it. So you can have,
Got it, thank you.
you can have all of this stuff if you want. So you
That's
can.
your stuff. Do we need to resubmit this to the,
So
to
just,
the board?
so if you just wanna, since he's gonna be bringing back
Mm-hmm.
an amended report anyway. If you just wanna, kinda add a little bit
Thank you.
of data to your section. of
Thank you
the
for doing my
report.
homework for me.
Yeah, so maybe next month.
sure. Now, if, as long as we have time to get together, and look at various sites, we will shoot for next month. If we're looking at different sites, we're gonna have to look at the sites. I'm gonna have to send the information to the contractors.
Okay.
And get information back, so we'll shoot for it. but-
Tentatively.
Tentative, yeah.
Tentatively April, so, there's a lot more information online. I couldn't print off all the responses to the frequently asked questions because they're in pale blue and they don't come out on the paper. So, there, are some other, companies that do this too, that had some more information, but I believe this is the one that was kind of recommended to us.
Yeah, this is the one that kind of, to me at the time, looked like, a pretty polished package and ready to go, and they're out there doing business. And, not like some of the others that basically would probably take an engineer to put these pieces together, say on a bigger production basis, right?
And
This
there's-
is modular, it's pretty doable.
And there is a link on there to look up the commercial use of it for like a big area, a community-wide area like us. But they want you to register on there to get the information, and I figured that was more up to you to do that.
Yeah, so where are we headed with this? You just want to get as much information as this? Do we know how much water that we really would want to be,
500 acre feet.
500 acre feet,
Mhm.
really?
If we could get 500 acre foot, we'd be pretty golden.
Yeah, that was.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of,
That's what I'm shooting for.
500 acre.
That's what- When you come up with 500 acre foot, pitch it.
So, a little more information,
that'd be a big number,
Yeah.
500 acres. Okay, I'll write it down.
whatever you.
Yes.
Yes, covered in these.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, that'll tell you how many units you need. by how much
Yeah.
water we need to produce and what area it would cover, but I think it's worth looking at.
Sure.
Okay, so,
Like the community park might be a good application for this.
yeah,
If we
right.
ever wanted to Put in the fields there.
I was thinking more like, you know, an emergency contingency plan, like for, I don't know, something happens and we don't have any water, you know, we can have at least drinking water,
Yeah.
you know.
And this is supposed to
Something like-
produce some pretty, good drinking water, your drinking water. So,
About storing it, I don't know about storing it, but
okay, so
that's another thing.
No action right now.
no action right now to bring it back, and I need to, Jim's on vacation out of the country, Jim Webb, so when he gets back, I'll see if there's anything else he needs to add to his, but, you know, years ago, before the WRF was built, the Army Corps of Engineers did a study of alternatives. Are there any other of those alternatives that you think might be worth going back and revisiting?
Just a reservoir.
Yes, the off-stream reservoir.
Off-stream reservoir?
Mhm.
Okay, do we want to make it as part of this report, or do we want to?
So I thought, you know, so for this report, I kind of like, I think it should kind of be ongoing. You know, discuss for water supply options. I don't think that ever stops for us.
Okay,
I mean, we're always got a glass to the door or talking to other agencies, local or foreign, about good ideas or, you know, something that's, you know, vessel that's doable, feasible. So, yeah, I'd like to, I think that should be on the agenda for every month, and we should at least bring something forward, however big or small.
okay, so
Yeah.
reservoir, and my husband makes fun of me the way I say reservoir, but.
That's the
5
correct
years-
way to say it.
5 years of French, it comes out
Yes.
reservoir, sorry. So my understanding is that a reservoir would need to hold at least 3 years worth of our water supply to be of benefit. So what size reservoir are we looking for?
You're looking for about a 15, with 500,
Yeah.
1,500 acre foot of storage.
1,500
Yeah.
acre foot of storage.
Yeah,
Okay,
1,500 acre feet.
yeah.
so you guys want to look into that some more? Okay, what about, there are several other areas that we looked at the possibility of getting water from other areas, seeing if they had anything at their allotment they weren't using. Is that something worth looking into?
I mean, we, through the RAC meetings and so forth that we go to, we've had some encounters with the county and just some sidebar, you know, really informal discussions. Whale Rock's allocations are coming back up for bid by the end of the year. The county is gonna reallocate basically your allotments to the stakeholders there. The boys club, I call it the boys club, I'm sorry, it's the men's colony, is losing half they're not utilizing half their acre foot in volume as they're shutting it down.
They're shutting half of them.
They're shutting half of the men's colony down. They have 1,200 acre feet. They'll only be using 6. So there's 600 acre feet on the table right there. There are also other stakeholders that are just not using their full allotments. So it's kind of like what the division of drinking water did for us for a diversion. Well, you haven't used as much, so we're gonna take away that number. And that's what they're gonna be enforcing this year. So people have 1,200 acre foot that are using 400-600 a year. They're gonna lose a great portion of that. So, I mean, that's always a viable option. It's a 13-mile pipeline from here to Whale Rock. It would be something that we'd probably have to give back like high storm flows to during our high storm events to push that back and help supplement them back. And so it would be a non-treated pipe. It would just be a raw water pipe from that surface water. As you know, right now we have 2 surface water plants in our water treatment portfolio. So that starts to make sense a little bit, especially if you can pull 500-600 acre feet a year from them to help supplement us. So that would help keep our aquifer management and our aquifer levels higher. So we never quite get into those drought stages where we really dry it up. And then like Derek could probably describe it better, but as the drought continues on, they're usually about 3-year increments when you get into those really heavy drought years. As you keep drawing down your aquifers, especially our shallower aquifers that we have, it takes longer to build up that inventory than back again. You know, the very porous ground soaks that back up and you lose that volume of storage. Each year you go deeper into those droughts. So this would be kind of a great way to help us supplement our current supply and maintain our supply in a healthy way.
How realistic is it though, to just be thinking down the road, if we wanted to tap into Whale Rock Reservoir? I mean, that would take a pretty good sized water line. I mean, as far as length to get to Cambria, huh?
It'd be minimum 12-inch in diameter. You'd need something that can move 400 plus GPM like now.
Yeah,
And it's 13 miles, so you'd have to work with Caltrans. Or you'd have to do what State Water did and just put it right outside of Caltrans's district and put it on some property owner's property. So you'd have to reach an accord there with some land agreements. So yeah, so there's a lot of pieces to that.
yeah.
There's a lot of directions that it could go wrong real easily, but there's a potential
And we would have to lock up that reserve like sooner than later. So,
we'd have to lock up the reserve before we'd have a pipe in the ground, yeah.
yeah,
That would be the first step, would be negotiate for the allocation based on our demonstrated need. And based on the fact that we could offset water we're taking out of the creek with Whale Rock and preserve the creek flows longer into the summer. So there's that component as well. There is.
is this through the county?
Yeah.
So do they need to contact the county to find out what the allocations currently are and the amount that's being used? How would
I
they
don't
go
know. I
about
think-
looking into this?
I think that would have to be publicly available. I'm sure it's very difficult to find, but that's something that we could definitely look into. There's allocation and who's got them.
So in the past years, when there's been multiple droughts, we've seen a lot of reservoirs drop down to almost to the point of drying out. Has Whale Rock experienced that same thing? I see it with Lake Nacimiento, I've seen it with Lopez Lake and
Well,
some of the other lakes, but
Yeah.
I haven't really paid attention to how Whale Rock was surviving the droughts as far as water level.
The drought definitely affected Whale Rock. Whale Rock doesn't have as many straws in the drink as Nasi does and Lopez does. But I think their lowest point they got during the drought was probably 40% capacity. And
I'm trying to look it
yeah,
up right now.
Kristen's trying to look up some data right now on
So
that.
it would be helpful to know what how much of the allocations are being used to see whether the drought can survive another straw in there, if you're reducing the allocations of the others.
Well, from my understanding, when we were talking to our source at the county, that even during drought times, all their allocations were being fulfilled
Okay,
out of there.
So
To
they won't have
their
any trouble.
committed, yeah.
okay.
They may have not been pulling their full load out, but they were contributing to all their allocations to their sources, yeah.
Is a possibility of grants to help with that pipeline if we were able to move forward with
Absolutely,
that type of thing?
yes.
Okay,
What would you do with the water when you got it? Would it all just be, could that much water, it would just go directly into, no, it'd have to be treated, wouldn't it?
You'd have to treat it.
You have to
So,
treat it.
just by the way the crow flies, and if we'd come off Highway 1, we'd run it to Santa Rosa 3, their rodeo grounds. That's a surface water treatment plant. We're in the process of putting a new contact time tank there. So that would kind of base our judgment on whether we put a larger tank there or not. But yeah, we just process through there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
So perhaps I can get together with you to see how to move forward with looking into
Sure.
this.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, good.
So I'm understanding we're putting 4 things into this memorandum. We're updating costs based, for the geophysics based on potential sites we might go to. We're looking at more information on hydro panels.
Yep.
The Whale Rock questions, the allocations, find out what we can about the allocations of Whale Rock, and maybe talk about an upstream reservoir. Or is that something we still want to include in this memorandum? Upstream
Yeah.
reservoir.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
As many options as we could find for water, we need to keep looking, so. If we get to a point where something seems really viable that we can bring before the board, That would be really helpful.
I mean, I will preface with this, reservoirs are, it's a lengthy process to permit, it's a full EIR. So that's several years, and it's probably the most costliest way to store and serve water back to your system. I think they were back in our Army Corps of Engineers, which was done, what was that, document 09?
Yeah, and I think it was
Or
updated.
13, was it 13? Yeah,
2013.
yeah, I think it's 2013. I think they were talking, several thousand per acre foot initially for that.
Okay, and as far as Whale Rock, getting an allocation from them and running a pipeline, what's involved with doing that? Do we have to do another EIR or there? I mean, we're gonna have to get like right of ways from Caltrans and all
Right.
of that.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be an EIR per se, but we'd happily
We,
do some land negotiation.
right, it was either
Yeah.
do land negotiation
Right.
with the outside of Caltrans right away, or we do it in the Caltrans right away, and I think permitting, I don't know enough about the environmental permitting to know which could be easier from that
That
standpoint, but
involve coastal commission too,
Highway one's within coastal commission's boundaries, yes.
so it does. Okay. But
Yes.
some of the areas you might be thinking about with the reservoir would be beyond coastal commissions.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like some people have some work cut out for them.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, Dennis.
Okay,
Okay, I'm a strong believer in the magic of thinking big. However, I think as was Mr. Meeks who said that, you know, what about emergency use for the water or something, you know, emergency drinking water? I think it's important, even, how do I want to say this? The failing that I found in the first go around of this, these analyses years ago is that all of the analyses looked at the 3-year, 1,500 acre foot.
Mhm.
It's too big and ridiculous for the district to even consider.
Mhm.
I think in the portfolio approach ought to include options that are smaller.
Lesser volume.
They maybe only produce 10% of what you need,
Right.
but they're there.
multiple
And
options.
they're there. So if you rule something out because it's so big and so expensive, but you could have looked at a smaller version of it that could have served some need that is inherently more costly anyway, then the cost numbers might look better for that option because it's serving a need that if you had to supply it on the fly, you're going and buying drinking water from, you know, in trucks and having it, you know, that kind of thing. So that would be my one thought, first of all, would be to be sure that it's not, we're not throwing out a good option because it's too small.
Yeah.
And the other would be, to go back to what Jim was saying about, I keep thinking 300 acre feet per year, you know, this, using the direct potable reuse as a supply option. I think it's time. I think that the state has made it an option. It is an option. There are municipalities around the state who are already jumping on the bandwagon with demonstration projects, have been doing so already. And I think it's time to throw it in the pot and say, here's another option. Let's start looking at it, even if the first characterization of it is a straw, you know, here's our, you know, theoretical possible, here's a, you know, something we look at as a something to measure against. We're not proposing it. I wouldn't want anybody to jump in there and say, oh my gosh, they're proposing the drinking water from poop, you know, so, you know, I want to be sure that, and they're gonna build it next year. Oh, no. You know, so again, we have to take, you know, small steps to get it.
Actually,
There are some people who already think we're creating drinking water from.
I know,
people
we're
who
putting
don't.
already. Maybe that's where I heard it.
Okay,
and Dennis, that 300 number, that was like the highest, the high side of that.
Yeah.
During drought years or less years where we have to put more percolation in the pond. The more realistic number is probably about 140, 150 acre feet a year. But still, that's a large number. That's a,
you know,
it's a great number.
it may take multiple projects to get our water
Yes.
portfolio where we
Exactly.
want it.
Yes.
You know, I don't think we're looking at just one big thing. We're looking at several several things that could add up together.
Right,
Yeah.
that's why I always said, there's not one magic bullet for Cambria that's gonna solve all these things. It's multiple little projects or a big project, you know, with subsequent little projects supplementing it as well, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Anybody out there in Zoom have a question or a comment? I wonder if the raise hand feature is even working.
I know, I can't believe we haven't gotten a comment today.
I've been
This
through a
is.
meeting, you know.
Is anybody out there?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
We have Crosby and Laura Schwartz, Dr.
I see 'em,
Bentonhausen,
yeah.
and Laura and Crosby Schwartz. Gee, they're on there twice, but in reverse order.
And Director Thomas.
And we have Director Thomas. Okay, let's see, I think that was it. Is there anything else that you might need the help of an ad hoc committee with? Because we have a couple of people who don't have an ad hoc, well, actually, Steve is on CIP ad hoc committee.
Right.
Oh, and actually, I think all of you have ad hoc
Yes.
committees.
Well,
Okay,
before we go, let's get CIP ad hocs together for and confirm a date.
Want some more?
And maybe Chair Dean, once we get through the ad hoc CIP, I think we've got some internal ideas we'd like for an ad hoc. What was it? Oh, yes, clean fleet regulation. We'll briefly go over this again. I know we touched base, but this runs until June, and PG&E is offering to go from your their power source, or what am I trying to say?
Yeah, their lines.
Their line to our switch gear they would pay for. Basically, all we'd be paying for is from our switch gear to where the chargers would be and paying for the chargers. I already have in the works with the APCD, funding that would cover 2 chargers. That would be for utilities at the wastewater plant. Could even cover partially the install for materials, to hook that up. The only thing with PG&E is that they request, to receive that funding, you have to purchase 2 vehicles within 4 years.
I think at the time you purchase the chargers, you gotta purchase 2 vehicles.
Yeah,
Per
so.
charger.
And so that's the only kind of hitch in that get up right there is, utilities is not flush on vehicles right now. But, by 2027, all the vehicles you purchase, like F-150s and higher, will have to be zero emission vehicles. Right now, as of January 1st, half of the vehicles that we buy have to be ZEVs. So.
So
okay,
we'd
so
like
is it
to-
a future agenda item?
Yes.
Yeah.
Next month?
Yeah,
We'll bring it to R and I one more time, and then we gotta bring it to the board right away.
Yeah.
Because we need to have the board decide on how they wanna act on this. Cause it's
Okay.
coming at us whether we like it or not.
Okay. What else? You said you had a list?
No, that was the only one thing on my list.
Oh,
So we're gonna do an ad hoc committee on that?
do you
Is
need an
that-
ad hoc committee or
I
do
don't
we
think
just
we
need
do want
another
that, yeah.
discussion?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
would like to bring it back around again. We'll finalize some notes. A lot of these EV prices are dropping rapidly.
Yeah.
I think the EV market's kind of saturated. Certainly for
Drying up.
work, yeah. I know the prices on, like, we were looking at the Pro. Those have come down a lot. They're staying pretty static, but they're far cry from their $100,000 mark, you know, from a year ago when they came out. So it's something to think about. It's definitely part of the climate action plan as well. So it's something to think about along those lines. And I don't want to, I always hate being behind the curve when you got to catch up, and it's too late and now you guys got to buy zero EV trucks and replace it. So it'd be nice if we had some infrastructure that was paid for prior to that.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to bring back on the agenda next month?
I think.
Okay. You were talking about, somebody gave us some information about a cogeneration plant.
I thought we were gonna have, David Pearson was gonna bring us the cogen and we were gonna talk. We
Okay,
had that talk with them. I thought he was gonna have an individual out. And we were
okay.
gonna have that, so
So we.
I was kind of waiting on that, yeah, that
Okay.
vendor interface with
Okay.
staff, and then we could bring that forward
Okay,
as
so,
well, because that's something to think
so
about.
Pearson was bringing somebody, if I
Yeah.
remember right, from Cal Poly.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, graduate student, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Folks.
So that won't be ready for. And then you guys are gonna bring back some more information on,
Renewable, or,
water supply.
water supply.
Yeah, what we've got at that point.
Okay, and
Yeah.
will we be ready for the CIP discussion next month, do you think?
In April. I think we could be, yeah. I think we could be. I mean, we just need to vet it amongst ad hoc and then rank it, and then, of course, do our calculations to make sure it's,
Okay,
budgetable for the FY 24-25 year. And then I think,
okay,
because I'd like to bring in kind of a finished product
yeah,
here that we can
I
kind
like
of
that.
vote on.
okay, and you were gonna set a date with your CIP ad hoc committee here.
And then if anybody has any R and I topics that they want to discuss, just stuff that maybe we want to bring up or do a little deeper dive on. We're always ready to talk about stuff. Tony loves talking about wastewater.
It's fine. About as fun as talking about money
Does Cody have anything?
and lack of.
Oh, probably the rodeo grounds generator.
Okay,
I think that's our, I
we
think.
do. We have a 1985 generator out there that we've repaired several times. It's a tier 0. It's been grandfathered in by the APCD because it's necessity, because it is our backup power generation to the most important booster station we have in our community. And it's basically just short of 10 grand to do some repairs on it, because there's some fabrication that needs to be done to it because they're not making parts for it anymore. So we need to bring forward, Cody's compiling some list,
Getting some quotes.
some quotes on repairing that. Problem is generators that size, 125 kVA, and or larger, are about 26-week lead time right now.
Yes, looking into August at the earliest,
For a whole new generator?
Yeah,
and for a trailer mounted one, over a year.
Okay, so you can bring some information about that possibly next month?
definitely in April, yeah.
Okay.
That will have kind of an offset. We've always wanted a towable for water as well, because when we have these emergencies, wastewater has 2, but they're in use. So that doesn't do us any good on the water side of things, but we've always wanted backup power there at SR4.
Okay.
And we even have a pin and sleeve hookup to where we can just bring in a towable, plug it in and go. So we're even contemplating maybe just buying a used one. United Rentals having their used sale up. You can get one of those generators for literally half off that maybe has a couple thousand hours on it. It's probably 5 to 10 years old, but it's got 2,000 hours on it. It's been meticulously maintained with annual services. So we'll bring some of that information to you
You're
at that
talking
time.
about a generator similar to the one I see parked quite often at Wood and Eaton.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Something that size. Right.
Okay.
Right.
I drive past it a lot,
Let's see.
on my way back from the post office.
Mhm.
Okay, anybody else have anything they want to put on there?
Did we get a new ad hoc date for CIP?
No, let me see.
It was the 21st.
Guys, I'm looking at next week. So that's the 18th through the 22nd. We do have a board meeting on Thursday, so Thursday is kind of a no-go for me. We're doing a tour at 9 on Tuesday, but I'm pretty much wide open next week. Derek likes 9 a.m.s, 8s, 9s.
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, I could do morning meetings there.
Would everybody be good with like a 9 on Monday, the 18th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you'll get together with the other ad hoc committee on the water supply to go over, the other things we're looking at as far as the helicopter, what sites
Yes.
and all of that,
Mhm.
and about Whale Rock. Okay.
Got a question.
Uh-huh.
Pine Knolls Drive, are we losing any infrastructure under it? You know, where it's falling down the hill kind of there? Yeah. Do we have any infrastructure under that road?
Not on the side that's slipping off.
Not on the side.
Yeah.
Good half
Yeah.
answer, okay.
Yes, we do, yeah, the answer is,
Not on the
first of all,
falling down
yes, we
side.
do have, on that street, we
Okay.
have water and wastewater line.
Sewer line runs right down the middle,
Oh.
water line must be on the hillside of
Yeah.
that.
But nothing that's falling out right now.
No,
Okay.
That's
I was
good.
looking at it and I was thinking, I wonder.
It's
if we
not getting
have
better.
that problem. Yeah.
Do we know
Yeah.
how long it's gonna be before the county fixes that road?
I don't have any.
That's the road that goes up that steep incline up to
Yeah,
the Pine Knoll.
yeah.
Well, it's been over a year already.
Karen, there's a lot of pressure coming out of that neighborhood right now.
I know.
I won't speak to, you know, there's an individual working very hard with the neighbors in that area. To put some pressure on Gibson's office. Yeah, it needs
It's a
county
big fix
involvement.
though. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna
You
be
need to
driving.
bring
some
Yeah.
calls.
Supervisor Gibson and the public works person.
They've
out
been
here.
there, they've been there,
Oh, have they?
they've
Okay.
seen it, they know it's there.
Yeah, it's
And
not.
the answer is there is no money.
Well, I know.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Well, it doesn't get any cheaper.
no, but it's
Yeah.
gonna take the voice of that neighborhood
Yeah.
to really. You know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I mean, we've got to knock on the county. We've got to make our voice
You do.
heard.
Well,
Yeah.
they need to go as a group
Yeah,
online to the NCAC meeting and all speak. And they need to go to a board of supervisors meeting and all speak.
I couldn't agree with you
So
more.
as a group,
Yep. So those that are listening that live in the Pine Knolls neighborhood,
I'm not sure we have anybody from the Pine Knolls
never know.
listening right now, but they may listen to the
Yeah,
recording.
just share it, share it.
Yeah, I know, every
Gonna take a voice.
NCAC advisory council meeting, they're talking about it.
Yeah.
They are.
They had, Gibson's aware of it. He has his assistant or his liaison there talking about it. So it's definitely on the radar. I think you have to be the squeaky wheel. In this
Yeah.
case, you really do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cause coming down the other way from that area is not an easy,
Oh, I know.
Oh,
I
easy
went down
drive.
that way when
Yeah.
you were working on the broken line on Main Street. I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa, I'm glad I don't have to drive this all the time.
They're aware of the utilities that go up in that street, right?
oh, yeah.
They're also aware of the emergency issues.
Yeah.
For emergency vehicles and those vehicles being able to safely get in and out of that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So,
It's going the other way is a nightmare. It's a maze,
The
streets.
county person for North County Roads, over a year ago was Mike Tabaris, and I've worked with him for years and generations, and, we reached an accord a long time ago. It wasn't so easy. So he brought me out to say, hey, where's your infrastructure? Where are you at? Because we're looking, so at that time, they were looking into it, and this is, of course, back in, September, October of last year, pre-wet season. So I'm not sure what happened or what fell off. I'm not blaming any individuals or, roads or public works crews, but it just has to be something we have to be diligent.
Well, we don't want it
really
to
push.
crumble away enough that it does affect our service lines. So
Absolutely.
I'm tying it back to an R&I issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the road is not an R&I issue, but the service lines under it are. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay, if not, it is 3:49 and I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting unless somebody has any objections. Seeing none? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Figure out how to end the meeting.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
yeah, yeah.